Hello everyone, I'm Babsa Karen, and in this video we will learn some standard rules and steps to create the terrain, modify it and then exporting it so that the workflow between the teams is streamlined and there is no confusion between us. So let's start. So we start by making sure we have two packages installed, that is HTRP and Terrain Tools. So we will go to Windows, Package Manager, and we'll search for Terrain Tools. So I already have it, so I don't need to install it, but you might have to. And then I'll search for high definition RP. I also have this, so make sure you have both of these packages installed. So after installing both the packages, you go to File and New Scene and create basic outdoor DXR. If you don't see this option, you have to recheck if you have installed HTRP and then create. I already have created a new scene. So after creating new scene, you will have an interface like this and all the what do you call game objects here. You don't need to worry about them, so it's fine. After creating new scene, so we'll have to create a new terrain. So to create a new terrain, we will go to Windows. In this drop down, look for terrain and then terrain toolbox. So click it. You will have a window like this. So we will set total terrain width to 1666, length to 1666, and the height will be 600, and leave all the fields as it. Then we will go to terrain settings tab, and then we will change terrain width to 2048, 2048, 2048, and details resolution per patch should be like 128. It's the best value. And then this one also 2048. After setting these, hit enter. Go back to the create new terrain and make sure you have terrain directory set to assets slash terrain slash empty. Or if you don't have this, you can go to this three dots, go to assets, create new folder called terrain and select that folder. I have already done this, so I have this. After doing all this, you can hit create. It will take some time, and yep. So after clicking create terrain, you will have your first terrain in the scene, and you will have a terrain group and your first terrain inside it. So now we have to create neighboring terrains. So for that, go to select the terrain and go to create neighbor terrains. Now you will see some highlighted grids around your first terrain. So we will create 8 neighboring terrains. So in this pattern, so I will click this area. It will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. And yeah, as you can see, these additional terrains are formed outside the group. So what I will do, I will select all of them and drag and place them inside the group, so they are maintained well and does not clutter the hierarchy of the project. So after you have created the terrain, all the neighboring terrains, we have to set a height for each row of the terrain. So as you can see, we have 3 rows, each with 3 terrains, and we have to set height of each rows differently. So what I will do, I will keep the first row activated and disable all the upper terrains like this. Then I will select first terrain and go to paint terrain, and then in this drop down I will select set height. I will go to set height controls, select it, I will put 30 and I will click flatten all. So it will raise all three terrains to a height 30. Now I will disable the bottom row and highlight the middle row. I'll do the same process again. I'll select from one terrain, go to set height, and I will set this to 60 and flatten all. It will raise all the three terrains in the middle row to height 60. Then I'll disable the middle row and enable the top row. Activate them, select the first terrain, go to set height and change this to 120 and I'll select flatten all. So it will be a bit higher from any other terrain. Now if I activate all of them, you can see we have a height difference between all the rows. Yeah, so after setting height for each row, you have to select which block of terrain you have to work on. So let's say if someone is working on this block, so you will keep this block active and make all other blocks, select everyone and disable them, so it's easier for anyone to work on single block, and it will increase the performance of Unity editor also. So it is recommended to just keep the active block which you are working on visible and deactivate everything around it. So after selecting the block on which you will be working on, you will take a reference from the map which we have created for the demo scene. So right now we will be working on this block. So, and I would also recommend to take reference from internet about the biome you are working on. So if you're working on taiga biome, tundra biome or glaciers or beachside, you can take reference about the land from internet. Then after taking references from internet, you will go to paint terrain tab and you will use all these options to sculpt the terrain like you want. So I will use, let's say I will use stamp terrain and I will use this brush, and after selecting the brush I can play with these settings like brush strength, size, rotation and scatter to paint my terrain. And you can play with these settings, you can use different options and you can decide how your terrain will look, the shape of the terrain will be, and then you can like move forward to paint the terrain with textures. So after sculpting the terrain, you will have to paint the terrain with textures, and for that you have to create terrain layers. So we will go to project, and in project we will go to the folder terrain which you have created, and in that folder you will create one more folder called terrain layers, and in this folder we will create our terrain layers. So to create one, you have to right click the folder, go to create and select terrain layer. You can name this sand. Now you have to assign diffuse and normal map. So for diffuse I will go to textures which I have downloaded from internet. I will go to sand, and for diffuse I have to place the albedo 4K. So I will drag this one and put it in diffuse, and for normal I will take the image with normal, or you can see the blue image from here, drag it and place it inside the normal. And yeah, this is how you create your terrain layer. Okay, so after you have created your terrain layer, go to your terrain, go to paint texture, and inside paint texture you will have a layer palette. So you will click add layer, select the layer which you have created. So we have created sand, this one. I have a lot of terrain layers created already, so I will select this one which I have created right now. Select it, hit cross, and you will see it's applied on a terrain as a base layer. Now anything which you want to paint, which will be it will be painted above this layer. So for example, I'll add another layer called Nordic Mossy. You can see like it's in the layer palette but not on the terrain, so I will select this one and select my brush. I will change the size of the brush and I'll start painting. So this is how you can paint the textures on a terrain, and I would recommend if you find any third-party tool which efficiently paint all the cliffs or height variations in your terrain, so use that. It's completely fine. So yeah, this is how you make a terrain layer and paint the terrain. So after painting the terrain with terrain layers, you have to add trees to it. It's pretty easy. You can go to paint trees, and here you will see there are no trees defined. So I'll go to edit trees, add tree, and I will select I have pine trees in my project, I guess. Yes, so I will select this one and add. I'll add another one, pine, I guess this one, and add. And then I have two options. Either I can just take my brush and paint the trees inside terrain. And if you don't see your trees on terrain, you can always just zoom in and you can see them. And or you have another option from Unity. You can mass place trees. Select this one and number of trees 10,000. I guess 10,000 will be too much for this block, so I will keep it down to 4,000. And if you have a choice, like keep the trees which you have already painted on the terrain, or you just delete everything and mass place randomly. So I will keep existing trees and mass place 4,000 trees on this block. So I'll hit place and it will automatically place 4,000 trees on the terrain randomly, and it also is keeping my pre-placed trees also which I have painted earlier. So this is the way you can paint trees, and I would recommend use mass placed trees, or if you work like on a more concentrated area, then use paint trees. It's more efficient and more easy to work with. So after painting trees, you will think like you have to paint grass and rocks around the terrain. So I would recommend not to do that right now, because we are working on a system to do that randomly and procedurally. So don't add grass or rocks inside the terrain. We are still working on new system to work to place grass and rocks for us and do it in a optimal way. So now after placing the trees, you are ready to export your terrain. So to export a terrain, what you have to do, select the terrain and drag this object into the assets folder like this. So you will have a blue box around the name of the terrain. Now right click on the this blue box and export package, and you will have all the things which you have used in this terrain, and hit export. After hitting export, you will have a Unity package file which you can share with other people, and they can use that file in their project. So yeah. So after exporting, you can like this repeat the process for all the blocks which you are working on. And so yeah, and if you have any questions regarding this process, you can ask me anytime or text me. And thank you for watching this video. Bye bye.